Welcome to Stories We Love. I'm your hostess, Karen Laurie, and on this show, we get to interview and talk to and learn from people who are doing good in the world in the hopes that it will inspire you to do more good if you want. And today, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing Jennifer Maddox. She's a retired police officer in Chicago. She could have stayed in a nicer part of Chicago, but she moved to the south side of Chicago because she wants to help. Uh-oh, I'm gonna start crying. She wants to help kids. And Jennifer, what inspired you to begin with? What inspired you to want to move to the south side and to be with these kids? What was that impetus?
Well, what inspired me to do it is pretty much I was a police officer for 27 years and patrolled the streets on the south side of Chicago for many, many years. And, we hear stories about things that are happening in our city, and we see them on the news, the media, put stories out, but we really don't understand what really happens in our communities, especially when we're working with our youth and how they are faced with such trauma and such challenges within the communities. We only can empathize. We say we empathize with how you feel, but we really don't truly understand how they feel. And so I wanted to be closer to it because I just didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to understand and then be able to put into play some tools and things that I can offer as someone coming from law enforcement and now wearing a non-for-profit hat as to what I could do to make sure that our young people are getting the skills, the training, the love, the support, the guidance that they need.
Mm, I love that you want to understand because, there's a line that is, "Tis better to understand than to be understood." I think it's from Saint Francis. I'm not religious, but there's a great benefit when you really understand things because that's when you can get to the root and actually shift things in a better way. So I love that you're doing that. So what have you understood since you've been in with working with these children? What kind of things have you understood that we don't see on the news or that most police officers don't see?
Right. So what I've learned is that the trauma is real. This isn't, a reality show. This is something that's happening in real time, and it's happening to our families that are living, day to day in trauma-filled communities. I've witnessed people being shot. I've witnessed people being shot at. I've witnessed, bullets I've witnessed bullets going through, car windows. A bullet went through my own personal car window, and so I'm understanding that these real traumas that our families are experiencing, is something that's happening to them in real time. And that, we as people who are actually advocates for them need to be able to understand that we got to do more. We have to really engage and get involved and help and support our families as much as possible because, like I said, this is real time for them.
Yeah. And have you found, like, what kind of ways are you able to help them with that kind of trauma just on the emotional side to start with? Because that's so huge because it can impact people forever unless they get real healing. Um,
Correct.
yeah.
Yes. So I have a parent mentoring program, and we are in 4 of the local grammar schools. And we work with the parents, especially around social emotional learning and then being more trauma informed. And so those are some skills and tools that they need to learn so that they know how to work with their own children in trauma filled communities, so that they can be, able enough to be able to be that support system for them, as well as themselves. And as for our young people, our teenagers, we've given them tools around CPR training, stop the bleed training. They've also had some social emotional learning training as well, because they are reacting to a lot of the emotions that they are experiencing, in the community, and they need to understand where it's coming from and how to get a grip on it and to, get through it. They're very resilient, but they have to get the tools that they need in order to, so that they don't just lose it.
Right.
So we want to provide those type of trainings for them.
And do you feel like, I mean, it's got to be interesting because it seems like a lot of trauma can start in families and then the kids bring it to the school or to the community and it can be tricky. So are the parents open and are they able to make these kind of changes that you see?
Yes, many of them are open because they really don't know where to go to start to get these trainings. So when we say, hey, we are a resource for you, use us so that we can support you to be able to support your families. And so they're looking for the support. And when they find out that we are a place within Future Ties for them to come, they sign up.
Ah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And have you seen kids like are you when you're in the schools, are you in the classroom or are you how is it you're working with the kids in the schools?
So we train the parents to work inside of the schools. So typically they do like 2 hours a day, and their support system for the school and the teachers, when the teachers need extra support, they may have a lot of kids in the classroom and some may need some extra, services, some extra attention, some extra help with their math or their reading. And so the parents step in to fill those gaps, so that the education can keep going for the growth and development of our young people.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And with the kids, have you seen anything, like the metrics, I would imagine there can be tricky, with in terms of violence and in terms of you know, violence. Have you seen a diminishment in the violence happening at all? At least in the areas where you're working with the families and the kids and that? Have you seen that happening yet?
So it's up and down. It goes up and down. Typically in the summertime, that's when you really see the violence kind of spike a little bit. And that's why we always try to make sure we're putting into play things that the kids and the families can do, offer activities, offer any type of, programming that we can provide for them. Like today is Friday. We do a Friday family movie night every Friday, to give them an opportunity to have somewhere to come that's a safe space. We do play street events where we go take over a city block and we just shut it down and just have activities for the kids to just play for about 3 to 4 hours and provide healthy snacks. We do safe and peaceful events where we go out and make sure that we are providing a space for our young people to have somewhere to go that's safe in the summertime. We do kickbacks for our young people. We make sure that they have a space where we have a little game room now within our building where the kids can come and have a space after school or during the summertime or on the weekends so that they know that they have a safe space.
Wow. So, Jennifer, you were saying some of the things that you do for the kids and for the families, because summertime can be one of the most tricky times there. What makes summertime? Is it because kids have more free time, or what is it about the summer? Is it just hot?
So definitely they have more free time. Many of them, are kind of like trapped in their neighborhoods. They're not able to really travel into other communities and feel safe. So they tend to don't have really too much to do in their own community. So that's why we've been challenged to make sure that we provide activities, events for them throughout the summer so that they'll have safe spaces within their own community to be able to have some fun. Be a kid, which is one of the things that we, want them to do. We want them to be a kid. And by them being a kid, they gotta have some recreational activities. They need to have some activities where they can actually run around and play and do some things so that they don't tend to find negative things and act out on some negative behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important. It's so important, and to have a safe space, that's just so key. What's the name of your charity?
So the name of the organization is Future Ties.
Future Ties.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's everything that you're talking about. When you were growing up, did you grow up in an area where it was more safe? And did your parents have ways of dealing with you? Or how did you discover how to help the parents, for example, or help the kids? What happened to you that makes you know how to do that?
So I'm a product of a single home. My mother was a single mother. She raised two girls. I have a sister, and I'm the oldest of us both. And, my mother just tried to make sure that we were occupied, that we had things to do. She worked extra jobs in order to be able to put us in day camp or summer camp, or, we spent time with family, over the summer in order to keep us off the streets. So she was always looking to provide something for us to do so that we didn't get bored. And, when boredom comes, then you start, roaming and trying to figure out, things to keep you occupied. So my mother was quite well with keeping us occupied so that we'd have things to do. Many kids now don't have that opportunity, again, like I had said before, because they're so trapped within their own communities and that they don't venture out because they're fear of, gun violence or being victims of crime. And so for me growing up, it was nothing like it is today. We were a close-knit block. It was people on our block that knew each other, that looked out for each other. And so now, people tend to stay to themselves. They pretty much don't really get involved in something unless it's actually, directly impacting them. And then they'll get involved. So you have children that are out on the streets that are looking for opportunities to do things. And so as a community, we need to get back to that grassroots mentality of, it takes a village to raise a child, so that we can make sure that we are supporting our young people, whether they're ours or not. They're ours because they're in the community, and the things that they, possibly do will impact us one way or the other. So we might as well get involved and be a part and be an advocate for them to make sure that they have the things and the tools that they, they don't necessarily might not get from home. So we have to be that additional, support system for them.
Yeah, that feels beautiful. When kids, so one of the other people I've interviewed on Stories We Love, he teaches in, or his group teaches in the 5 boroughs of New York, mindfulness and yoga. And there's been experiences where kids have had violence towards them and they stayed calm and they didn't get triggered. And so it's really interesting. And he teaches to all different teachers all over. So it's interesting. I just think it's an interesting thing, because to me, when people are able to know how to deal, like you're talking about, deal with their emotions and be pretty calm, and if you're a kid being able to play, it seems like it's going to activate more capacity to deal with things in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you were talking about the community things, where the people come for movie night, or they have where they cut off a block and just have the block for the kids to play, is that starting, the mushroom effect of of kids having a network of other kids to play with and of parents getting to know each other more as well, so that they're
Right. It's capacity building, definitely. You're building up, the community to be able to support themselves, to support each other, so you have to create an atmosphere for them to engage in order for them to be able to understand that it's so important that we advocate for one another.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And would you say that it's kind of a food desert in the area that you're in? I mean, do they have any stores that are giving good food out, or is it not so good?
So they recently just had a Save-A-Lot, which was one of the major grocery store chains that was in this community, close. It closed without notice. The families, the residents, they had no clue that Save-A-Lot was pulling out. The next store that is available to them is almost like a mile and a half to 2 miles away. So you have seniors within the housing complex where a lot live that now don't have access to getting fruits and vegetables, healthy foods to eat. Now they have to figure out ways of trying to travel out of the community in order to get those bare necessities that they need in order for survival. So it's bad because there isn't any restaurants that they can really walk to, no sit down restaurants. We had a McDonald's across the street from the housing complex. They closed about maybe 8 to 10 years ago and never reopened. So the entire block where these families live is pretty much like a desert. You can say a food desert. It's just a desert for any type of economic development, period. It's a desert. And so with our building that we just purchased over a little bit over a year ago, we're trying to make it a spark, make it a change, bring something to the community that they can look forward to and have. And hopefully it'll generate enough attention where other businesses would also want to come back into this community and invest some dollars into this community so that people have access to just the basic things that they need.
Yeah, yeah. And is there a way, I don't know, I've only been in Chicago a couple times, and every time I was there, it was like the record-breaking coldest time it ever been, in the 89 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor. And so like things probably don't grow there that easily, but during the summer, is it possible, or the spring and the summer maybe, and maybe a little bit of the fall, is it possible to grow things? Like, do people have areas in their backyard or in their home where they could grow? Like I grow food in my house, in my place. Little, not big food. I don't have that much area to grow big food, but I do grow a little bit of food here. And then, yeah, so is there a way that food can be grown, or in the community or on the block, where there's food that could be grown that they could have access to that is healthy?
So not really. There are a few food pantries that are in the community that, the residents typically tend to visit, throughout the month. But as far as growing their own food, many of the residents live in what is called low-income housing complex. So it's like buildings with people stacked on top of each other. And so they don't really have the means or the capacity to grow food in their homes or around the surrounding property, typically because the space is not a good space. Let me say it's rodent infested for one, and I don't think that they would want to eat the fruit that they grew with the rodents being attached to it too. So
Right, that makes sense. And there's another guy I know, he's in the Bronx, and I interviewed him. He has the green machine, green Bronx machine, I think it is. And he grows food in a classroom. And so the kids can take it to the families, and it's all in like sort of like aquarium looking things, you know. And he grows it there, and then the kids
Mhm.
get home and they teach it. They teach the kids, you know, how to cook and how to do that. So it's kind of an
Mm.
interesting. It's interesting. There's so many options, you know. There's so many places. You know, I just love your heart. I love that you are looking to find ways to help, and that there's so many, you know, there's such a big need. It sounds like there's a huge need. And then there's also so
It
many
is.
that I can connect you up with, at least that might be able to show you how to do, if the, you know, show the teachers how to grow and teach the kids how to grow it in their house, you know, in their schoolroom. So then they get
Mhm.
whatever they get, you know, whatever the, it's usually vegetables and some fruits, but it's harder to grow because fruits mostly are trees, but you know, vegetables most of the time. Um, and but that's still very good, you know, it's better than nothing, you know.
Right.
Better than
Exactly.
processed food. Yeah, and when you are doing this, what kind of um like what kind of um, like are kids able to do things like ride bikes? Are they able to do things like you know, do what kids normally do, you know, skateboard, ride bike? Are there areas like that that are safe to do that, or is that when you shut down the school, or do they not even have those kinds of things?
So you do have some kids that do have bikes, and there are some kids that actually ride those little schoolers, but their time is limited, you know, when they are actually able to do these things because of the violence that occur in the community. You know, parents are really fearful about letting their children go outside to play because at any given moment, it could be a shootout, you know, or something can happen, whereas the kids might end up being shot. So if the parents do let them out, it's very limited, or you know, they don't let them out at all, or they may let them out in our space because we are like next door to the housing complex, and typically where we are is looked at as a safe space instead of being inside of the actual housing complex.
Mm. When you're looking at the people who are doing the violence, is it the kids in the community, or is it people, is it adults? Is it all kids? Is it both? Have you like where is, yeah.
So it's a little of both, you know. So you do have kids that are committing some of the violence and the crime that's occurring in the neighborhood. And, you know, typically, you know, they're not bad kids. They just, you know, need a better support system. They need some guidance and some direction. They need some love. They need someone to really take an interest in them and to be an advocate for them and to get into situations where they're not out there being offenders, you know, or even victims, you know. So it's like I said, it's up to us to do our due diligence to make sure that we are doing, even if you think it's just a little bit helps, you know, a little bit is enough. If that's all you can give, then give it, because some kid is going to be impacted by it, you know, and they're going to be able to utilize whatever it is that you have for the benefit of what it is that they need. And so people should understand that, you know, maybe you can't buy something, or maybe you can't, you know, feed everybody in the community, but just a little time that you can do, you may can just sit in the park and watch the kids play, or walk a kid to the park, or, you know, or host something that's real small, like a Uno game, or, you know, a coloring activity, you know, something just to get them engaged in doing something so that they can have something to do. You know, it doesn't have to take a whole lot of money to get kids' interest. You know, we just need to understand that a little bit is enough.
Exactly. And it's in what you're saying, you know, if you give a child attention, if
Mm-hmm.
you give a child love, um, they respond. I went to dinner with somebody whose his parents or her parents, and she's 18. She's going to go to a school near my house. And her dad said, "This is amazing because this is the first time she's ever talked. You know, like she doesn't usually talk. She's very quiet." And she said, "Well, Karen's interested in me." And I was like, "Of course, you know, she's a human being. She's a beautiful young girl. You know, of course I'm interested. I want to hear what she's all about, right?"
Right.
It's like it's so interesting, you know, when kids, just to have them be able to see someone listening, to see someone shining love from their eyes, you
Mhm.
know, it's such a huge gift. I love what you're doing, you know, and I can see the love that you have, and it's beautiful, you know, and it's do you feel like you're getting support from other people outside of the area, like in Chicago or places around? I know Go Campaign, who I love, with Scott Pfeiffer. I know they're helping you, but are there other places, in, you know, like maybe outside of the South Side, but that are part of Chicago or nearby that are helping at all?
Yeah, so there are other philanthropy organizations, foundations out that do support us because they see the work that we do. We post, almost daily, if not weekly, of the activities that we are providing for our young people. So, we don't get all grants, but the grants that we do get, we put it back into the community and make sure that we are spending the money in a valuable way that we know that it's going to be impactful for our young people.
That's beautiful. Wow. And with the kids in them having more time to play, having more time to be in a community, like the way you guys are setting things up, and the parents maybe getting to know each other parents so that they can have that connection. Because I grew up a similar way with you, where, you know, we just played on the street all day long. You know, everybody knew everybody. Every parent knew every parent. Some of the parents were a little crazy, but everybody knew everybody. And you know, you looked out for, you looked out for the other kids. You looked out for the parents, looked out for the kids. Everybody was kind of taken care of, and I'm still friends with people from, you know,
Right.
since I was born. And so when you have these kids having this stuff, are you watching things like, are their grades getting better? Are they more interested in school? Are they more interested, able to learn? Are they more calm? You know, are you seeing any of those effects?
So, we still have to work very hard because we, have to be realistic about it. They are still living in trauma-filled communities. So, we do practice meditation, we do practice yoga, we do practice those techniques, but these are things that we have to do ongoing, because it never ends. It's always something that's going to happen or affect our young people in the community to just, knock them off their square, right? Things that can trigger them, so we have to understand those triggers. We're not inside of their homes, so we don't know what's taking place once they leave us. We have an after school program where we incorporate meditation, where we incorporate yoga to try to give them some tools for when they go home. These are some things if you find yourself in a situation where you need to meditate, to calm yourself down. These are the tools that, we provided that you can use so that you'll have them, but these are things that happens daily. It's almost like a reset. You have to push a reset button, because what you've taught today, you have to reteach it over and over and over again because these skills are so important that we want them to become like memory, like they just remember it like their name so that when things happen to them, they automatically go into a space that they can help and support themselves.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting because you know, I help people let go of that trauma. That's something I do in with my coaching, mostly adults, but I've worked with kids. But a lot of them will use something only when they need it
Mhm,
versus using it on a consistent basis. And
mhm,
I love that you're teaching things, you know, on a daily basis, because that's part of, like, when you are more, let's say you're meditating from my experience, I've been meditating 33.5 years. So a little while, and when you're meditating, you're more attuned to what street to go down,
Right.
where you should stop. Oh, you should go this way, or no, let's go this way. There's
Right.
something that happens where your intuition increases. And
Mhm.
so I just love that you're giving them this kind of stuff on a more consistent basis, because it can help all the time,
Mhm.
it can help forever more, you know. And you're
Because
right.
when we started doing meditation, oh, it was a challenge because just getting the kids to sit still, without moving and fidgeting and wanting to touch. But that's nerves. Their nerves are just shot, right? So we thought that we could just jump right in and say, okay, we're doing 15 minutes of meditation. Not, no, we weren't. So we had to start off in small increments and do like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, till we were able to build them up to a space where they were able to actually come in. And now they come in and say, okay, well, it's time for meditation. So now they know, when meditation time happens, occurs, and now we just mix it up and do it in different ways, different varieties. We ask them if they want to put a song on. We let them put on a song, because typically we will put like some meditation music on, but now we allow them to give us a song that they want to hear, and we'll utilize that song during the meditation period that we do. So giving them a little bit of input into, how they take care of themselves, because typically they won't listen to meditation music at home, but if there is a song that calms them that they listen to at home or out and about, then they can fall back on that song, because they know this is the song that's going to help heal them.
And you're so right about, you want to get it into their minds, it's basically their subconscious, so that they remember these tools, how to do them, like they know their name. And that is something that is so key.
Mm-hmm.
And kids from in utero until 7 years old or so, 6 or 7, they're in what's called a hypnagogic trance, meaning they're hypnotized, and their brain waves are in that same state, so they're super receptive. And that's how kids can
Mm-hmm.
fast, but it's also how kids can get traumatized, and the trauma stays in unless they get ways to heal it when they're still young. I mean, you can heal people at any age,
Right.
but it's super helpful if they get support when they're young. So I love that. And that is so true, because there's so many things, when somebody gets something when they're young enough and they get it on a consistent basis, it is just becomes natural. If it's a good thing, it can happen with a bad thing too. But if
Right.
it's a good thing, it can, because your subconscious has no good or bad. It just says whatever you program it with, it's just going to go that way. But
Yep.
but the fact that you guys are doing things in a consistent way, it seems like you're going to give them something that'll just be part of them, just be natural. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it seems like you have so much wisdom. Do you find that your years of being a police officer helped you with this, or was it mostly from having your mom, who was pretty, sounds like she was pretty wise?
Yeah, yeah, a little of both. My mom was awesome. Thank you for including her in the conversation. But just, being a law enforcement officer as long as I was, going into different situations that I've never experienced myself, and then trying to figure out how to better support or provide a service to people around their challenges, their struggles, their situations, their trauma. The police is pretty much just called when things happen that are not so great, right? And
Right.
so we are responding to trauma filled situations daily. And so to put ourselves into a situation, whereas, it may be some things that we see that we don't clearly understand ourselves, it gives you an eye opener, an aha, like, wow, I didn't really know that this is what goes on in other people's homes. You hear about it, you never really see it up close and personal, but when you do, it gives you that chance to kind of step back and say, man, we as a society, we have to do better. We really have to do better, because there are the haves and there are the have-nots. And so the ones that are the have-nots are the ones that really contribute the most in society, as far as you see these moms out here working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs, just trying to make ends meet, and then they got to come home and take care of the kids and the best way they can, and put food on the table and keep the lights on. And they are single parents, they're struggling, they're trying to make sure homework is done. It's so much that goes into them just trying to make it and survive from day to day, that when I walked into some of these situations, I said, no, it's more for me to do. And I have 2 sons of my own, and I've always shared with them just how blessed they are, because I was in a position where I was able to really support them in the way that, most and all children should be supported, and that they, need to understand kids in our communities where they don't have any clue about, need our support, and how we can give back and make sure that we are people in the community that they can come to, that they can know that they'll get some love, some support from. And my young men, they followed me, and they actually helped me with the organization, and they still do work with me in the organization, because they saw themselves that it was such a greater need, that we needed to do more to support our young people and our families.
That's beautiful. Thank you to your boys.
Thank you.
Um, one other thing I was just gonna say, if I can remember it, because I was moved, because you're obviously a good mom.
Thank you.
With these kids, one of the things that I found is a lot of people don't know how to be thankful for what they have. And some people don't have a lot, but they can be thankful for it. And one of the things that I teach my clients is your heart beats for you at night.
Mm-hmm.
Your lungs breathe for you when you're asleep. Your body is giving you the capacity to see or to walk or whatever their capacity is, right? And I find when people are in the place where they start to realize that they do have some things. They have a heart that's working for them. Their heart is supporting them. Their lungs are supporting them. Their cells are supporting them, right? Their eyes, their ears, their legs, their feet. There's all these areas. The ground underneath their feet is supporting. It's finding the little things to appreciate. And when something
Right.
appreciates, it grows in value. And I find that when kids learn how to appreciate, they start to feel like they have more. And that feeling of having is a feeling of being able to get more. Like more comes
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the way the world works. More comes when you feel more supported, and they're getting the support from you, but also looking to see, oh, there's support, I'm getting sunlight, there's support, I'm getting, my heart is working for me, or my cells are working for me, or my digestion is working for me, or my mind is working for me. There's so many things that are supporting each of us. It's hard to see it when you're in trauma, but it's something that when people do start to see it and start to pay attention, it can literally shift their physical bodies to be healthier and stronger, because they're in a state of more calm to do that.
Right. Right. Yeah, most definitely. They're, just waking up is a blessing, and we, many times we take for granted being able to walk, being able to see, like you said, so those are blessings that we get every day, so yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, and another thing that I teach with my clients is like, okay, I just wanted to pick up this bottle of water. I know it's blue, but it has a vitamin in it that's blue. I wanted to pick up this bottle of water and I did pick it up. That's something I wanted and I got it. I wanted to open the
Right.
bottle and I opened it up. That's something I wanted and I got it. So if you see, so when kids, to me anyway, if there's a child that walks across a room, they wanted to, write something on the board, or they wanted to um, play a game and then they were able to, or they wanted to, hug a friend and they were able to, or they wanted to write a word and they were able to. It's like showing them, look, a lot of the things you want are coming true already. There's a
Right.
lot, you just take it back, to the simplest, tiniest things. That a lot of things that you want, you wanted to walk across the room, you did it. That
Right.
is a sign that you are capable. That is a sign that you have, the capacity to have what you want. Yeah, you
Right.
growing up in a place that's tricky, but you still have capacity and power. And look at you wanted to do something, you did it, right? And that to me, I love that you guys are doing this because you are advocating in a way where they can start to see that they have capacity, that they have power, that they have the ability to get what they want, even if it's tiny
Mhm.
things, because it
Mhm.
is those little things that most people take for granted that are the most um they're so powerful to appreciate. They're so
Right.
powerful to recognize. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer Maddox. It's lovely to meet you. Future Ties is your foundation, and I found you through Scott Pfeiffer from the Go campaign. And the Go campaign, just to let everybody know what that does, is that helps kids all over the world, and it
Yeah.
takes local heroes like Jennifer, and they support the local heroes because you know what's going on the ground. You know what the kids need, and so that's really beautiful. And thank you to your mom. Thank you to your boys. Thank you to the communities that are making safe places for the kids. Thank you to the parents who are learning to shift. It's beautiful.
Thank
Thank
you, Karen.
you, Jennifer.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who tuned into Stories We Love. Appreciate you so much. Maybe there's something you can do for Future Ties or for the kids in your community, or just something that you can appreciate yourself, something tiny. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
You
All
too.
right.